Hey guys, welcome back to the Son and Tim Show. I am Tim.
I'm Son.
Yeah, and we are here again to discuss something new. We're going to discuss the 2019-2020 Chicago Bulls.
Mm-hmm. And I know you might be asking, that was last year's Bulls team. Who wants to discuss that? But it's going to lead us into what we're going to discuss next. So, Tim, what have you got about this?
Well, we're gonna discuss the Bulls. That's just the big deal. We're both Bulls fans. We're excited about the direction this organization is going, and we just kind of want to recap if you were, under a tunnel or something for for the last season. We just kind of want to go over real quick. Obviously, the Bulls were terrible last year. Number one, they were 22-43. They were, like I was talking to Son about, they were 0-21 against the East top 8 teams. They were not competitive. Jim Boylen was a buffoon. And we'll get into that a little later. It just was awful. They beat bad teams. That's the only reason they were 7th worst in the NBA. And it just sucked because, there were injuries. So our key players got injured. Otto Porter barely played. Wendell Carter didn't play much. And the direction of the team looked pretty hopeless, Son, until the All-Star weekend when everybody started yelling, "Fire Garpax, boom, 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 fire Garpax." And you guys all know this, right? Yeah. But it kind of brought the Bulls into a place where they have to look for an outside voice. What's happening isn't working. So, Son, what happens?
Well, yeah, first of all, I do want to add to what you're saying about injuries. Not only were there injuries, there were regression. I mean, look at Lauri Markkanen, for crying out loud. Do you want to talk about a guy who had so much potential, who then looked like a complete bust right away from one year to the next?
His first game last year, he went for 35-17, and he got nowhere close.
Nope.
To those numbers in any of his games.
Nope. Yeah, so let's talk. Let's just – What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to talk about last year's team. So then we can sort of bury last year's team, put it away, and then we're going to look forward and move on to this new Bulls team. But yes, really quick to recap, as you did, that was a fantastic recap, Tim. Jim Boylen was arguably the worst coach ever in NBA history. Yes. I mean, this guy what could this guy do? I almost want to ask, how did this guy even get in the NBA?
Hold on, Son. I gotta call a timeout.
Okay.
Son?
Yes.
Hold on. We're in the middle of our podcast. Guys, I'm sorry. I gotta call a timeout right now.
Okay.
Because I'm Jim Boylen, and I call timeouts at dumb times.
Oh, do you mean with?
There's a timeout in the middle of our podcast. Why not?
9 seconds left in games when we're down by 20?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, then it's fair.
Let's do it.
Good.
Let's just – but
nice Jim Boylen call there, Tim.
It probably made no sense at first. Sorry.
Well, that was quite the curveball, and I definitely was surprised, as I'm sure all Bulls players would be surprised, when Jim Boylen would call these silly timeouts during the games.
Yes, I mean, those jokes. I mean, you saw Zach LaVine on the sideline just going. Just like, nobody respected this dude. He didn't know how to use his players. He didn't know how to use his rotations. Obviously, he was probably the main reason why Lauri Markkanen regressed. And that's a question, too. We'll get into the next video, guys, looking at each player. Mm-hmm. So there's a question of, is this the player or is this the coach? And I think it's a big time the coach, because he left Markkanen in the corner all game, and that just plays into his passivity anyway.
Mm-hmm. But it's definitely the coach. I think we could all agree it's definitely the coach. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, 31% winning percentage. Garbage. And then like his first 10 days into the office, putting the players in practices, running sprints back and forth, to the point where it causes almost a team mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a joke of the NBA on ESPN. It just was a horrible start, a horrible tenure. And it was crazy that he was even backed at one point. And Son, probably the reason he was backed is because of financial money, considering they fired Hoiberg before.
Mm-hmm.
Paxson probably wanted something exactly the opposite of Hoiberg in response to Hoiberg, and they had two coaches on the salary at that time.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, I didn't think there could be a coach worse than Tim Floyd, but I was clearly wrong. And you're right. It seemed like the Bulls organization were more worried about just keeping guys in-house and keeping the guys on staff as opposed to actually putting together any sort of winning formula on the court. And
Well,
they
yeah, it was about
and they
money.
succeeded terrifically
It
in
was
that
about money.
area. Yeah, it's totally about it. You know, and that's the thing about the Bulls organization is that they've always been cheap. This goes all the way back to when I was a youngster watching the Bulls. Michael
Son, can we
Jordan.
real quick do a new section of new segment of when Son was young?
Yeah, when Sun was Listen, when Jordan was at his height with the Bulls, and I'm not talking about the last few years when he signed the $30 million deal. I'm talking about throughout his prime years, his young years in his 20s. He was not paid well at all by the Bulls organization.
Same with Pippen, right?
Same thing with Scottie Pippen. Jerry Reinsdorf and the Bulls organization has been stingy throughout the course of their ownership tenure with the Bulls. That's just basically how they've always run things. It's always been on the cheap, you know, and especially in the case of Michael Jordan. Jerry Reinsdorf only did that, in my opinion, and you even saw it in The Last Dance, is because of how much money he put in Reinsdorf's pocket.
Yes.
You're talking about a guy, Jordan wasn't even the highest paid player on his team. So you're talking about guys who have brought so much to the game, so much to their team, and yet they're still not getting compensated properly. And that's just how the Bulls organization have always been run until now.
Until now.
Right, until now.
So, Son, what happened with this outside search? Tell me.
Well. First of all, we got this. We got a terrific team president and Arturas Karnisovas.
Yes, and that's how you say it, Karnisovas.
I got it right.
Karnisovas. Yeah, Karnisovas. Yes.
Karnisovas or Karnisovas?
Karnisovas. And let's just call him AK.
AK, yes. Let's call him AK. And listen, AK
comes from the Nuggets.
Yes, comes from the Denver Nuggets organization, and this guy brings the goods. All I hear about with this guy is how well organized he is, how he was a former international player, how he has built up like a sort of a network of international players and domestic players, and how he sort of has these relationships all throughout the game of basketball globally. This is exactly the opposite of how the Bulls have run their organization. So this is
it's awesome.
I mean, this is awesome. Yeah, there's no other way to describe it.
Well, it's good, and he was the GM of the Nuggets, so he, like you said, he's very organizational. Apparently, kept people in check in that front office. He's the one who brought in the Joker. He's the one who brought in Jamal Murray. He decided, hey, let's trade the Bulls that number, what was an 11 pick. We'll give them Doug Dermott, but we're going to take back Nurkic and Gary Harris. So he knows how to make trades. He knows how to pick players. He got Michael Porter. He decided to take that risk when the Bulls should have.
Right.
I mean, this guy's smart in terms of his basketball savvy. And he's smart enough. What I love about this move, and we'll get into this more, is the Bulls, I think it's because they moved. It went from Reinsdorf to his son, Michael Reinsdorf, and what's Reinsdorf's first name? My bad.
Jerry Reinsdorf.
Gary went more to the White Sox. That's his baby towards the end of his life. So I think Michael got the Bulls more, and you saw it. He was more involved in the post-game he was more involved in end of the season interviews, that kind of thing, and it felt like, and even Arturas talked about this. He was given the keys to the car. He was given autonomy. Money wasn't an issue anymore, and that's what we're talking about. It's such a awesome thing.
Yeah, that's great. The fact that they've decided to shift from just saving money to winning. and they want to bring winning back to the Chicago Bulls. So if you are a Bulls fan, this is an exciting time for us because we finally have an organization that's dedicated to winning. Even during the Jordan years, Jordan just fell into the Bulls' lap. You know, he was still more interested in saving money, but then the league blew up because of him. Yes. Now the philosophy of the organization has changed. That's the difference.
And I love the fact he came from Denver because at first the free agents aren't going to want to come to Chicago. He built that team from the ground up. So now he knows how to do that. He knows how to build through the draft. He knows how to build in those kinds of player developmental ways. So now we can kind of expect the same thing to happen in Chicago over time.
I think a huge benefit, again, to having AK is the fact that now that the game is so much more global, now we've got so many more of these international players playing in the NBA. His relationships and his ties to those leagues out there in Europe, to those leagues, you know, out there, whether it's in Asia, South America, wherever it is, he has those network connections there. He's a great scout. It's going to be fun for him to be able to sort of, you know, scout all of these players and bring them in. I don't know. I'm excited. It's great.
You know, I love the most
something I'm not used to as a Bulls fan. But go ahead.
I love the most. The first movie he did was, let's fire Gar Forman. And let's reassign John Paxson out somewhere in the organization. Just somewhere, advisory role. So he really took the bull by the horns. Chicago Bulls. He really took the bull by the horns there.
Yes.
So, all right.
No, you're right, because again, just to wrap it up again, the Bulls have been always so much about keeping things in house. Yes. And now that he's got rid of Gar Paxson Foreman, who've been in charge of the team for almost 20 years. It's been that long, and they haven't been able to do the job.
Yes. Yeah, all the way back to where Paxson came in, and his first thing was firing Bill Cartwright. That's how far back he's been going. So hasn't worked. Time for a new voice.